The quiet suburban streets of Kilburn Drive in Wigan felt safe. A cold Thursday evening on November 24th, 2022. But then, a single event shattered that calm. The victim was 38-year-old Liam Smith, a devoted father of two. He was not shot by a rival or an enemy. He was shot in the face, at close range, by a man who then doused his body in sulfuric acid and soda crystals. This was not a crime of passion, but a premeditated act of pure vengeance, meticulously planned for months. But why? The story begins with a Tinder date 3 years before the murder, between Liam and a woman he barely knew, Rachel Fulstow. For Liam, it was a one-night stand quickly forgotten. For Rachel, it was a perceived wrong she would later use to fuel a toxic narrative. This toxic narrative led her new, controlling partner, drug dealer Michael Hillier, to plot a murder with her. A plot so cold and so precise that it would culminate in Hillier waiting for 10 hours in a cloned car just to lure Liam out of his house. And in the ultimate display of callousness, just days after the murder, with Liam's body still on the street, the killers would fly to Jamaica for a 2-week holiday, as if nothing had happened. They thought they had gotten away with murder, but the trail of evidence they left behind would be their undoing. Before the crime scene tape, the forensic teams, and the headlines, there was a man named Liam Smith. At 38 years old, Liam's life was centered around his 2 young boys. He was, by all accounts, a loving and devoted father, a man who worked hard to provide for his family. Friends and family describe him as generous and kind-hearted. A former soldier, he was a quiet, dependable presence in his community of Shvington, Wigan, where he ran his own business, LPS Electrical and Build Limited. Tributes from neighbors and family poured in after his death, painting a picture of a man who was the very opposite of the violence that ended his life. His sister Gemma called him her rock. Liam had no criminal connections, no known enemies. So how did he become the target of such a vicious attack? The answer, as police would discover, lay in a brief Tinder date with Rachel Fulstow back in 2019. It was an unremarkable encounter for Liam, but for Rachel, and the man she would later become involved with, it was a perceived wrong that would spiral into a deadly obsession. 2 years after her brief encounter with Liam, Rachel Fulstow met Michael Hillier, a volatile and controlling drug dealer from Sheffield. Hillier was a man who prided himself on being off the grid, a master of deception with knowledge of burner phones and cloned number plates. When Rachel told him about her date with Liam, claiming it was a non-consensual encounter, Hillier's ego and need for control took over. This wasn't about seeking justice. It was about dominating a narrative and a person. The decision to kill Liam was not impulsive. It was meticulously planned over months. Detectives later uncovered a disturbing timeline of preparation that began in May 2022. Rachel Fulstow's digital footprint was key. She researched Liam's business and home address. Her searches included chilling queries like, "What is premeditated?" and "How long does it take for a car to burn completely?" She even checked the weather forecast for Wigan on the day of the planned murder. Meanwhile, Hillier was preparing in a more hands-on way. He sourced blank-firing guns and modified them to fire live ammunition. He trained in his Sheffield cellar, firing at makeshift targets. He also purchased corrosive chemicals, sulfuric acid and soda crystals, with the sole purpose of destroying evidence and making the crime scene unrecognizable. On November 2nd, 2022, Hillier made a reconnaissance trip to Wigan. He sat in his Mitsubishi Shogun, already fitted with cloned plates, and watched Liam's home for hours. The couple waited for the perfect moment. On the evening of November 24th, with Liam home alone, everything was in place. Hillier drove from Sheffield, parked on Kilburn Drive, and waited for 10 hours. At 6:30 p.m., wearing a head torch and high-visibility clothing to mimic a workman, he approached Liam's home. A single gunshot was heard on a nearby CCTV audio recording. Hillier shot Liam in the face. Then, in a final act of calculated cruelty, he returned to the scene to pour sulfuric acid and soda crystals over Liam's body. Within minutes, he was gone, leaving behind a scene of chaos and a family's worst nightmare. In the hours after the murder, Hillier drove back to Yorkshire and burned the Mitsubishi Shogun to destroy evidence. He and Fulstow then boarded a flight to Jamaica for a 2-week holiday. The arrogance of this act, enjoying cocktails on the beach while a family grieved, would later be a central point for the prosecution. But back in the UK, detectives were working. The breakthrough came from hundreds of hours of CCTV footage. They spotted the Mitsubishi Shogun, parked for hours, and its false registration plate, R22A. A search of police records revealed that South Yorkshire Police had stopped this exact vehicle weeks earlier, with Michael Hillier behind the wheel. The walls began to close in. Hillier was arrested in January 2023, and Fulstow followed in February. Despite her initial lies and claims of ignorance, the digital evidence against her was damning. Her searches and her complicity made it clear she was not an innocent bystander. On July 20th, 2023, the trial of Michael Hillier and Rachel Fulstow began at Manchester Crown Court. The prosecution, led by Jason Pitter KC, presented a case of premeditated murder. Hillier admitted to manslaughter, claiming it was a crime of passion fueled by Fulstow's account. Fulstow denied all involvement, insisting Hillier acted alone. But the jury saw through their lies. After a 6-week trial, the unanimous guilty verdicts were delivered. On August 25, 2023, sentencing was announced. Michael Hillier received a life sentence with a minimum term of 33 years. Rachel Fulstow also received a life sentence with a minimum term of 30 years. For Liam Smith's family, the verdicts brought a small measure of justice, but could never heal the deep, raw wound left by his death. The murder was not a random act. It was a cold, calculated, and senseless crime born from jealousy and a misplaced sense of vengeance. In their public statements, Liam's parents, Julia and Phil, expressed the profound loss of a son, brother, and father. They spoke of the 2 young boys who will now grow up without their adoring dad, a reality no sentence can change. This case serves as a chilling reminder of how a seemingly minor event, a brief and long-forgotten encounter, can be twisted and manipulated into a motive for the most shocking act imaginable. While justice has been served, the quiet street of Kilburn Drive will never be the same. The events of that night will forever be a part of its history, a testament to a father's life cut short and a chilling plot that was finally uncovered. What do you think about this case and the sentences? Let us know in the comments below. If you want more real UK crime stories like this, subscribe and turn on notifications. There's always another case to uncover.